Welcome to the ExecMBA podcast. I'm your host, Brett Twitty, and you are listening to a new episode. On this episode of the podcast, I'm excited to share my recent conversation with Chris Clark and Rose Khouri. Chris and Rose are two first-year students in our Executive MBA program here at the Darden School of Business. And I recently connected with them to talk a little bit more about their backgrounds, what led them to Darden, but also their recent experience in the Professional Advancement course, a required career-focused course for all Executive MBA and part-time MBA students. I think you're really going to enjoy this conversation. And as always, if this conversation is helpful for you, please like this episode and subscribe to the ExecMBA podcast so you never miss an update. And remember, you can always check the episode description for links to Darden blogs, social channels, and more. And now, without further ado, here's my conversation with Chris Clark and Rose Khouri. Rose, Chris, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
It's great to have you both here. Rose, how's everything? How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm currently taking both finance and accounting, and I do not have a quant background. So this quarter is, I wouldn't say tougher, but it's taking a little bit more time, a little bit more focus. But at the same time, I quite literally decided to do an MBA because I wanted to learn these subjects. So I'm excited to be learning them and actually feel that I am understanding them.
That's great. Quarter three, definitely a quarter that is remarked upon here on the podcast. If you had to do like a word cloud of the quarters that are mentioned most frequently, quarter three would be brought up for the combination finance accounting. And it's also a little bit shorter than the other quarters too. So that has some implications, particularly if you're having to spend a little bit more time. But glad to hear that it's all making sense. Chris, how about you? How are you doing?
Yeah, doing really, really well. I think coming into the new year, I have an understanding of what is expected of me as a Darden MBA. So nothing has fazed me yet this year. It feels comfortable. Love the cohort. And to Rose's point, the quant piece is why I'm here. So I'm leaning into it and going to office hours as I struggle through the content, making sure I'm grasping the concepts.
Well, you both mentioned something I think is important to remember as you get started on this MBA journey is, what motivated you to take this step in the first place? I think oftentimes people get to accounting and finance and maybe it's not making sense to them and they're like, oh gosh, it's stressful. But it's good to remind yourself that I came here to learn these things. I came here because I didn't know these things. Of course, there would be a learning curve. So I think that's both very good notes. So Chris, tell us a little bit more about your background.
Sure thing. So I was chatting offline with you all about being from New York. That's a big part of who I am. I'm born and raised in New York. I've been in the DC area about 3 years with my now wife, Crystal. I've lived in many different places. So this is now the 9th city I've lived in as an adult. So been all over Nashville, Michigan, California, Illinois, New York. And I've also been over in London and up in Toronto. So being in the DC area, UVA was always front and center as a university to look at. And when I first moved here, I did not have aspirations of getting an MBA. But as I grew to learn and understand more about the DMV and the connections that you can get from being a part of a UVA program, that definitely sparked my interest. By way of professional background, my interests are really in the human behavior, kind of org psychology space. I started my career at Google working in ad sales, educating small and mid-sized businesses on how to use digital advertising to grow their businesses. A lot of them had to use print and TV and radio at the time. And we were working to convince them that digital ads were the way. And this is back in the early 2010s. Obviously very successful for the company over the years and is a huge revenue driver for them. But back then it was still a growth engine for them. I've worked in employee engagement. I've worked in ad operations. I've worked in many different facets of kind of the corporate finance wheel. And over the last 3.5 years, I've had my own business. And one of the reasons why I'm at Darden is really to think through what the future looks like for the business, as well as for me as an entrepreneurial person who wants to impact people at scale. So that's why I'm here, to figure that out and starting to get some understanding of what that looks like.
Thank you, Chris. Rose, same question for you. Tell us more about your background.
Yeah, so like many in DC, I am a consultant, providing strategic communication support mainly to different federal agencies. I've been doing comms for over 10 years at this point. I started out actually in the international development space. The first half of my career was abroad in Beirut, Lebanon. But over time, I began feeling very siloed in this industry. It's neither particularly well paying nor particularly stable. So in my mid 30s, I actually did through UVA, through the School of Continuing and Professional Studies, I took a year-long graduate certificate in federal contracting and procurement management. Um, and I did it very deliberately. It was a very strategic plan because, again, like the grower, was it switcher versus grower? At the time, I was looking for a switch. I was looking for a way to move beyond the international development background expertise that I had built, or at least to build upon that and give myself more options. And within 2 years of completing that certificate, which I actually did during COVID, I had essentially effectively doubled my salary. I had moved into more general project management, more strategic comms. And so I saw the results of that. And when it came time several years then after, when I started thinking about next steps, an MBA and further investing in my education was the obvious choice.
Well, thank you both. Rose, you mentioned like an MBA being kind of an obvious choice for you, and you talked early on in our conversation about you came for these more quantitative courses. How did you decide that an MBA was the step you wanted to take, and why Darden in particular?
Yeah, I had seen the direct result of investment in continuing education quite tangibly in terms of my bank account. But also, 5 years after I finished this graduate certificate program, I found myself again a little bit stuck. I was in, more general consulting field, but to move up, beyond senior consultant, to move higher up in consulting, you really need some kind of education background. You need the degree itself. They really care deeply in this industry about that piece of paper, but also the actual knowledge. So I realized I'm a people manager, I'm a project manager, but I have this knowledge gap in terms of the technical knowledge that I need to jump from managing an aspect of a contract or a project on a contract to managing an entire federal contract by myself.
And Chris, you mentioned MBA wasn't necessarily on your mind when you moved to the DMV, but here you are in an executive MBA program. How did you decide that an MBA was the right step for you?
I'll be honest, Brett, I was in a bit of a rut. I found myself helping others and my company, which we can talk more about. The ethos of it is altruism. We look to give back to people who've been laid off, and we offer coaching to those in that position for low cost or no cost. We also work with small businesses and nonprofits. So I was doing a lot of giving back, right? And I love that. I didn't have much direction on where I wanted to go, though, right? The business was never meant to be something I wanted to do forever, at least not the way I had it designed at the time. And I found myself looking at programs that were going to help me kind of recenter what it is that I wanted to provide to organizations, either as a full-time employee or as a partner, through my own company. And the MBA just felt like the natural next step to have that container for a couple of years, just explore that and do so in community. As a founder, it can be quite lonely. You're sitting in a room by yourself, often talking to a screen, and it can be quite lonely to ideate on what you want to do next with what you have. And being in a MBA program felt like a nice social way to ideate on what the future holds. So that was the main reason why I started looking at MBA programs. And then when I started, looking at different ones, I landed on UVA because of its focus on entrepreneurship and innovation. And I found that UVA was truly invested in building up the entrepreneurs of tomorrow. And I found myself just gravitating to all the different avenues that UVA offers, whether it be Batten or the ETA elective in year two or what have you, just different investments that the university is having for entrepreneurs.
Yeah, thank you for that. So you're now over a semester in. You're in quarter three, which is month five, six or so of a 21-month program. How does it feel, Chris? How have you adjusted to life as a student?
I made the right choice, Brett. I did. And I can say that confidently because, as Rose mentioned earlier, there's a lot of value in having the paper. The knowledge piece is you can't quantify the value in just practicing technical skills. I haven't had this experience since 2012, not to age myself, but I haven't had that experience of sitting in a classroom consistently since then. And it's interesting because I've led learning teams in the past. I've been a learning and development leader. So I was usually the one delivering the workshop, building the content, and being in a classroom that is built for me to learn has been a nice change of pace. So it's been the right choice for me. And I found myself taking the topics that we learn in class and going and doing further study on my own. I find myself telling my parents or my spouse or my sisters about things that I learn, and that helps reinforce it as well. So I found it to be very, very valuable.
Rose, how about you? What's the adjustment process been like for you as a business school student?
So I came into this thinking this is going to be a 2-year slog. I just have to get through it. I'm going to force myself to learn all of these and focus and do full-time, high-pressure work while also going to school. And the number one thing that has been surprising to me is how fun it's been. Obviously, it's still a lot of work. It's still a lot of quant. You really do have, you get what you put into it. But the people are hilarious. The activities that we do, it's very much become this community that I didn't even know existed in DC. DC has a reputation for being like a transit city, right? People come and they leave. But building out this community of people who are smart and awesome and do cool things with their lives and with their careers. It's not something that I expected, and it's part of it that I've really enjoyed. I look forward to the residency weekends that we do once a month, even though again, it's a lot of work. But we are always doing dinners and outings and activities outside of class. So it's not all just being cold called and trying to figure out what WACC stands for. It's also been that a community.
Yeah, weighted average cost of capital, I think. I
That's
picked that up
correct.
from the
You passed my
yeah.
cold call?
There you go. Thank you, Rose. Heard it a few times here on the podcast, so it does help. So I'm curious, Rose. You mentioned about it anticipating that it would be a slog. It's not been a slog. And one of the pieces of advice that some of our faculty sometimes give prior to the start of school is remember how much fun it is to be in school, right? To have the opportunity to learn again. That sometimes gets lost in the conversation about working professional programs where people are like, oh, my life's going to be so complicated. I've got all these things going on. How have you managed the commitment the program requires? What's your schedule been like?
Yeah, so I work long hours. Again, it's the consultant life. Obviously, I work only 40 hours for a federal client, but I also do business development and other aspects there. So I have found that I fit it in. Not every week's going to be a winner. And actually, Aaron, who's sorry, official title, I don't remember. Aaron told us at the very beginning there are also quarters that are going to be better than others because that's how life works. Darden is very understanding that every single one of us is a busy professional. Again, it's part of why I chose specifically the Darden program. It is built around a schedule for professional, for parents, for hard workers. It fits in my schedule. And there will be times where I have plenty of free time. I can sit and I can focus and I can re-listen to the recording of the lecture that I knew I missed something or I didn't walk away thinking I understood that concept. And then there are times when I'm busy, I have to fly to Tampa. I need to be on the road somewhere. And this is where the learning team really comes in. Again, another aspect of the Darden program that I really, really like. We are put into learning teams at the beginning of the program. And these people very quickly become almost like a family. And they divide us up based on, I think, professional background and like subject expertise. So I've got two people in my learning team who have degrees in economics. So when they took Econ 101 essentially with me, I think it was Econ for managers, and I was absolutely floundering. These people who had 4 years of economics training were able to help me understand concepts outside of class. And then when it comes to things like communications or marketing or anything that strategic writing, I've been able to provide support there. So yeah.
Chris, I'm curious, how have you managed to make all of these things work simultaneously, like work and life and school?
Well, I just want to go back to a point that Rose made earlier around people being very funny. Rose is definitely one of those people that brings a lot of levity to our group because, and we need those people. We need people like Rose who are always finding the joy in every moment, because there are times when you have two assignments due, you have a class, you have 4 cases to prep, or in the case of our OGR weekend, you have over 10 cases to prep, and it does feel like you have a lot on your shoulders. And I find a lot of value in kind of tapping in with the folks who find joy in every moment. And Rose is definitely one of those people.
I am an unofficial, I would say an unelected and unofficial head of the EMBA 2027 for fun chat, which is basically a meme chat in our WhatsApp group.
Yes, sure is. Overall, I found it fine. I'll be honest. I prepared for this moment coming into the program. I carved out space in my schedule to make sure I had time for learning team meetings, for the OGR weekends. Thankfully, a lot of things are scheduled in advance. Very, very rarely does something come up last minute that needs to be turned around. And, having worked in high growth companies in the past, I'm very used to the last minute kind of turnaround deadlines. This is not that at all. I find it to be quite manageable. It is, once again, good amount of work, good amount of prep, and it's coming. The communication is solid. The scheduling is well in advance. So if anyone's out there wondering if I can even fit this in, if you're a good planner and nice and organized, you'll be fine. And if you're not, someone can help you because you have a good learning team that will kind of back you up.
Yeah, I love that you both emphasize the team sport aspect of this. You're not doing this by yourself, which I think is really important for people to hear and to know. Darden is not designed to be an individual pursuit. It's absolutely a collective endeavor. So I wanted to have you both on the podcast because as you are now in quarter 3, you have just recently wrapped up the professional advancement course, which is a required, mostly online, but there is an in-person day, career-focused course that students take. They have the option of taking it in the J term between their first year or their second year in the ExecMBA program. The vast majority of students will take it in that first January term, which is right after you've been in the program for about a semester, and you are kind of feeling like it's probably like the right time to look at your career plans and start to dig in on those. And so PAC comes around, I think, at a good time for students. And so, Chris, I want to come to you. How would you describe this course to folks who are just learning about it here?
I find it to be even more valuable than your favorite auntie asking you what your New Year's resolution is. It is the perfect grounding to start the new year. I came into January thinking, man, I have class almost every night and I'm coming off. For full transparency, I had my honeymoon right before J term. And so I was coming off 3 weeks of holiday and then right on Zoom for the first virtual class or J term. So it was a bit of a shock to my system. And then people were talking about their biggest fears when it comes to transitioning in their career. And they were talking about how they've found the program and they've started to think about themselves as a climber instead of a switcher because they find more value in their current companies, or now they want to become an entrepreneur because they realize they don't want to work corporate anymore. And I got energized by the space. So yeah, to answer your question, the structure of it is, you start with some time with your cohort that's curated by the careers team, really to ground yourself in what your personal journey is when it comes to your profession and where you see the Darden program fitting into that and accelerating your transition, whether it be as a climber, as a switcher, or as an entrepreneur. And for me, I came into it thinking I am accelerating my entrepreneurial journey. And I left the week changing that to I want to be a bit of a switcher. And that was a huge revelation for me because once again, I joined Darden because I wanted to figure out what to do with my business. And now I've realized my business will evolve and I'm evolving with it to take what I've learned as an entrepreneur and bring that back in house in corporate. And so J-Term was monumental for me in gaining the confidence and the vocabulary that I needed for myself to understand that I'm really a switcher. I want to take this entrepreneurial ethos that I have and I want to apply it back into an organization. So that has been so super grounding. So between the virtual classes and then on the Saturday, we do all get together and we meet with dozens of alumni from across the country that come in and tell us about their journey and offer up their calendars for us to meet with them. And between that and the virtual sessions, I came out of it with a totally different direction. And I know I'm not the only one. And so I think it was a beautiful week of exploration for a lot of us in the cohort.
And all that happened in 10 days.
10 days.
Amazing. Wow. What a whirlwind. All right, Rose, tell us about your experience in the PAC course.
Amusingly, I had almost the exact opposite of Chris, which is I came in thinking I was more of a switcher, and I left actually feeling very confident that I am in the right field for me. What I particularly enjoyed was on the very final day of this PAC course was as Chris was talking about, the all-day uh, panel discussions with the different industries and the Darden alumni. And so we got the opportunity to sit in different industry panels and see what clicked with us, what didn't click with us. And what I found is I walked into the marketing and communications one and immediately was like, oh, this is where I've been and I like being here. The panelists were so strategic, smart, the way that they expressed themselves, the way that they answered questions, it felt not like coming home, but it was a good reminder to me that I came in to the MBA program wanting to give myself more options, and rather than those options necessarily being in other industries, that in fact there are different ways to do marketing and communications across all different types of industries, but that same field, that maybe I've been in this field for so long because actually I like it. It's what I like to do. So that's one of the things that I really took away from that is maybe I'm already in the right place. I just want to grow within it. The other thing I got is an MBA is an investment, right? It is an investment of time. It is an investment of financial resources. But the careers team is actually one of the best examples of those financial resources going to something that can help me throughout my career. The team is fabulous. They genuinely care about you, and they will support Darden alumni, from what I understand, until your very last day of professional career. The idea that no matter where I go, because in this period, especially with federal consulting, we got a lot of ups and downs. The idea that there is always going to be this team of specialists that are going to be able to assist me and help me find something and introduce me to people and help me network and help me, zhuzh up my resume. It's a very reassuring knowledge. And I also came out of the 10-day PAC course with a better understanding of who this team is that is going to be available to support me.
Yeah, and that support continues with Alumni Career Services even after you graduated, which is complimentary for all Darden alumni for life. Different team, but still people in your corner who are here to help you. Rose, I'm curious, what's it like to have a credit-bearing course that's focused on your career, like to actually have space in the curriculum to work on these things?
I really like that it is something that we are forced to do, which is again why we're all doing the MBA. We can sit home and watch YouTube videos and learn specific facts and things and how to do certain things. But part of the for credit aspect is that we are here, we got to do our homework, we got to turn in our career goals and our networking plans. And all of us are doing this MBA to in some way impact our careers, whether it's changing industries, changing fields, just growing, learning more, becoming better qualified for the work that we're already doing. So the idea that it's not just us going to learn classic courses throughout the whole time, but also getting time set aside. All we have to do is focus on building out what could be better for us career wise. And I really appreciate that.
Chris, same question for you. You mentioned this class comes around. I never thought about this, but you're so right about it. Comes around just at a time where you're thinking about New Year's resolutions and what you're going to work on. So, to you? What was the value in having a credit-bearing course focused on your career?
Yeah, it created a level of formality around it. To Rose's point, when you have homework and you know you have a deadline to hit, it creates a level of self accountability that you're going to put your best foot forward on whatever you're putting down. I think if you're not as intentional about your career, or if you don't think that an assignment has any weight to your grade, maybe you don't take as much time to really think critically about what you're getting out of the experience. I found for myself the opposite. Because I knew it was a part of the grade, I took an extra second to just make sure everything I was submitting was something I was going to back up, because I know there's going to be follow up. And I knew there's going to be follow up. There's a meeting that happens right after PAC where you have to check in with the Career Center one-on-one and go through what you wrote. So it wasn't just submitting an assignment and getting a grade. It was someone's going to read this and then ask you questions about it. And that for me just created a level of accountability that I needed to start the year. And I've been, now that we're heading into the latter half of the quarter, I'm activating the plan that I put together for that assignment, right? Because there are steps that you have to communicate, like things that you will do in order to get to your goal. And it's happening in real time right now. So I find that to be very, very valuable.
I'm curious about that Saturday event you were talking about. You both mentioned it, where alumni come in and there's all kinds of panel discussions. Chris, obviously, the PAC course is mostly virtual, but this is kind of this incredible day where you can come and meet all these people. How do you tell us, like from a student perspective, like what's the value of that particular event?
It's speed dating. It's an opportunity to explore your interests in a curated environment for a very set period of time. And for me, I did not attend the entrepreneurship panel very intentionally. To Rose's point, I knew when I walked in there, those would be my people, right? And that's wonderful. I wanted to go into spaces where I didn't necessarily on paper think those are my people. And I wanted to see if I can find my people in those rooms. And I did. One of the spaces that I really, really enjoyed was the nonprofit panel. And I do work with nonprofits now. The thing is, I've never thought that maybe I'd work for a nonprofit as an employee of a nonprofit. And talking to folks on the nonprofit panel who came from very different sides of the nonprofit world, some in museums, some in academia, some in, advocacy-based groups, I find myself really resonating with their mission-driven ethos. And I find myself operating that way now. So we do kind of jive in a lot of ways. Those really were my people. And I would not have thought that when I'm looking at it on paper. And now I'm actually looking at nonprofit roles as places I possibly can land in after I graduate or while I'm still in the program. So that is something that I took away from that day is by exploring spaces that I didn't necessarily find direct alignment. Initially, I established alignment by experiencing it live, and I couldn't put in words how valuable that is. And I'm so glad that it exists. I'm so glad people took time out of their Saturday mornings to come and join us. Some people flew in from across the country to be there. You can't put a price tag on that. It's super valuable.
Rose, what was the highlight for you, or what were some highlights for you from that day in Roslyn at Sands Family Grounds?
Yeah, I, like Chris, deliberately stayed away from the panels that overall I felt I already know about this. I'm here in this MBA to explore, right? So I didn't go to the consulting panel. I didn't go to the nonprofit one because my background, I started out in the nonprofit and international development field. So I went to the tech one in part because, again, I don't have that quant technical background, but I know that there are a lot of adjacent roles, and there was a woman on the panel who was an English major who was now working for, I think, Amazon Web Services. Um, and I wanted to understand what was her journey. How did she go from English major to working for one of the most well recognized global tech firms? And the answer is a lot of networking, which is another aspect that the PAC course really covered very effectively. And then I went to the marketing one, and then, um, uh, sales. I went to the sales one, sales and business development, and I do quite a bit of business development in my own career currently. It's part of working for a small veteran-owned small business. But I actually came away from that thinking, I don't know if sales is for me. I don't know if corporate sales is for me. I've even though marketing has many shared aspects with sales, I actually came away more interested in the marketing side of things. And I also spoke to one of the panel speakers after the session was over. She works for Hilton, and as you know, my professional background started abroad, and part of me has been thinking about maybe the opportunity to once again work abroad or spend time abroad. And so the idea of being able to still stay in this communications marketing career, but working for an international conglomerate that is all about travel, it hadn't really occurred to me. I don't know why. And I asked her if I can connect with her on LinkedIn and follow up with her for an informational interview. And she was like, absolutely. And that's something I'm sure Chris will also speak about, which is every single alum that I have met from Darden is like ready to help, ready to network, ready to give time out of their day to help that next generation of MBA candidates.
Yeah, 100%. I've never had to wait more than a day or two to hear back from a Darden alum, and they usually have such enthusiasm about wanting to help. And whether it be to get a referral for a job opportunity I saw online, or talk about how they navigated a certain course, or I've heard that when it comes to electives, they're very helpful in helping us choose which electives to go for. I've never had an issue tapping in with an alum from any year, whether it be the last couple of years or 20 years ago. They're always very willing to help.
Well, that networking piece is really important, particularly for executive MBA students who are looking to make a transition. We always stress with prospective students that the search process is really going to start with informational networking, just getting curious about what people do. And as you kind of go through that process, you're going to start to narrow in on what it is that you think you're really interested in and maybe where you'd like to do that, the target companies. And the great thing about the networking based approach is that you've built relationships at some of these places. And so by the time you get around to applying, if you've really nurtured these networks as you've gone along, all of a sudden you have people who can put you in touch with a hiring manager or advocate for you as you start applying for roles. And it all has a as a purpose. I know it sounds very slow, but the networking piece, I think people really think about it as transactional. It's to your point, Rose, what you just shared earlier. It's exploratory, right? You're kind of learning. You're just curious about what these people do.
And I came in really thinking of I've always been kind of a networking skeptic. It's such a DC buzzword. It can feel very disingenuous, especially if it's one-sided. But what I've realized as I've become a hiring manager and a people manager is getting somebody who is pre-vetted, um, being able to hire somebody that you know coming in, this person has been vouched for, this person is going to live up to the expectations because hiring is such a difficult process. You're always looking for good people. And in the same way that I have had people recommend me, I have actually now twice, actually since PAC, I have twice now because we're also hiring at my firm. I have taken two resumes from current EMBA and then one part-time MBA student from people that they know that are looking for jobs and submitted them to RHR hiring managers. So I've already kind of started that. It's not just a one-way street that I'm looking to benefit, but I've already been able to recommend two people to our HR director.
That's great. And one of the benefits of doing a working professional program is if you're looking to make a switch, maybe there's somebody who can help you out, maybe from within your class or from another working professional program at Darden. So, Chris, I'm curious. You've obviously had quite into 2025 and beginning of 2026. What are you looking forward to in the months ahead? What's exciting to you?
Yeah, very excited to see everybody in person. We had to miss our last OGR in person and move to virtual because of the weather. So that is one thing that I'm looking forward to is seeing everybody in person. And two, my goal coming into this year has shifted, as I've mentioned, and I've put myself out there for a few full-time roles. So I really look forward to gaining some traction in that area. The Career Center has been great with that. I have some interviews lined up now, and so I'm going to put my best foot forward for some of those opportunities and hopefully land something. My wife and I have some personal goals that are aligned with me going back into corporate, and so I think that's a major focus for the next few months is looking to land a full-time opportunity.
All right. And Rose, same question for you. What are you looking forward to in the months ahead?
I'm actually super excited for the electives. The first year, all the classes are pre-selected for us. We all take the same classes, and it's always a mix of quants and classes like leadership and communications. But I think it's starting in the summer or the fall that we get to pick electives for the first time. And my learning team and we've already decided that we're all going to try and take at least one or two electives together. So we're going to discuss those as a team so that we can all stay in class together. And then I'm excited to take some topics. I'm going to try and push myself. Don't hold me to this, but I'm going to try and do something with AI because, again, it is such a important topic right now. And to be able to learn and come out of this with a deeper understanding of AI is going to be great. And then I'm going to try and do more finance if I can. I'll see how I do on this finance course, but I think it is one of the most important skill sets and knowledge sets that I actually don't have. And just I'm a month into this finance one course, and I already wish I knew more. So I think that's my plan, and I'm excited to learn more. And then hopefully I'll take something that's negotiation. That's what I wanted to take is negotiation. Especially as a woman in the business space, you always hear about salary disparity, and so going into any kind of negotiation with a better sense, both sort of like the science behind it as well as just the ability to practice it, is something that I'm looking forward to.
Well, Rose, I'm curious. You've already shared a lot of insights for our listeners today, but maybe a final piece of advice you would share with them as they think about their own MBA journeys?
Think through what is most important to you, what you want to get out of an MBA, because that will help you choose the right program for you. For me, I knew I wanted a program that I could continue to work full time at a busy and often unpredictable schedule. But at the same time, I wanted an in person component. I have friends that are doing fully virtual MBA programs, which work for them, but I knew I needed an in person. I needed to meet people and build not just a network, but a community, especially here in the DC area, where again people come and then they go. I wanted a program in the same geographical space in which I work because, again, that's where your network is and that's where you want to get hired in. And also, there's a stereotype of MBA students being like cutthroat and competitive. And I've met some from other programs. I have not met one at Darden. It has been of the 150 plus students that are in our cohort. I can't think of a single one where if I asked for help with I'm trying to figure out something in class that I just couldn't grasp or a concept, that they wouldn't immediately drop everything and help me out. So decide what you're looking for. Are you looking for, um, the kind of program that Darden can give you? Then apply. That's what I did.
Chris, you get the last word here. Piece of advice for our listeners?
Well, Rose covered a lot of what I was going to share. I will say this, going through your MBA is not a solo journey. So whether it be people in your life today or people that you'll meet once you enroll, no matter what, you won't be going on the journey alone. And so if you are on the fence about if you have the time or if you can handle the coursework on your own, You'll make the time, people will help you carve out the time, and they'll back you up when you don't have the time. And I find it to be a super enriching experience to just go on an academic and social journey with 100+ people who all are like-minded and are goal-oriented and want to be your friend for life. It's super enriching. So if you're on the fence, come on this side. It's warm and fuzzy over here.
Well, Rose, Chris, thank you so much for your time. It's great to hear the students' perspective on the professional advancement course. We talked with our career team about it here on the podcast, but great to hear about it from the participant view. So thanks so much, and look forward to seeing you for your next weekend residency.
Thank you. See you then.
And that was my conversation with Chris Clark and Rose Khouri, two first-year students in our Executive MBA program here at the Darden School of Business. As always, if you have any comments, suggestions, requests, and you'd like us to cover here on the podcast, we're all ears. We can be reached at exec, that's ExecMBA @darden.virginia.edu. Till next time, stay safe, be well, and thanks for listening.